today two representatives of the 2018 Water System Expansion Project in North Pole, Bill Butler and Lockwood. Bill has been the North Pole Director of City Services for the past 10 years. Prior, he's worked as Associate Director of the University of Alaska. Bill has worked in state and local governments and has worked in Pennsylvania, Tennessee, New York, and in Africa. And this is with Syntec Consulting Services as the lead civil designer on the North Pole Water Project. He's done utility work in Fairbanks for the past 6 years, helping with the design construction of IGU gas distribution project in North Pole. So welcome to both of you, and anxious to hear what you have to tell us.
Sure, thank you very much. Not really much of a PowerPoint presentation because I think everything is wrapped up by this one particular slide showing the water system expansion we have. Actually, it's underway in the city of North Pole. I'll do a little background on it. There was sulfurine contamination that originated in the refinery in the southern part of the city of North Pole. The city of North Pole became aware of it in 2009. Moving forward, it ended up going to a legal case. And then the North Pole, the state of Alaska, and Flint Hills Resources came to a settlement agreement, but another party in it, Williams Petroleum, has chosen not to participate in the settlement agreement. So there's still an ongoing court case for the sulfurine issue. But the three parties right now are moving forward with putting in a water system project. The way the lawsuit unfolded, the city of North Pole can only have a legal case related to it within its jurisdiction. But of the other parties, Flint Hills and the state wanted to see a comprehensive solution to the problem. So North Pole only really make its case for things within its city limits. But the part under discussion, the opportunity, here was a utility on the border of the rest of the area where there was groundwater contamination. So the settlement was worked out that the extension would be added and connected to the city of North Pole's existing water system. Prior to this particular project, early on in the process, Flint Hills did put in brand new wells for the city of North Pole. Because I'll go up and show you. You all can't see it from not being here. My treatment plant was right here. Let's see if I get my orientation. Water treatment plant was right on the edge of the sulfurine plume. Early on in the process, it had just, and you might remember we were talking about the press release for it and had a press release ready to go, ready to say there's no sulfurine in the city of North Pole's water. And I said we couldn't do that till we tested it. And we found that there was a, just at the, basically the detection limit for sulfurine. It got a water source. We don't typically treat for it, but we have these called green sand filters. They have anthracite in them. So no, it was a level that our filters actually took it out, so no sulfurine went into the distribution system. So we could say there was no sulfurine in the distribution system to the city of North Pole. It was in the water supply. But to avoid any potential for future contamination, Flint worked with the city and installed two new wells approximately 1 mile east of where the existing water plant is. So they're well outside the plume. Water is pumped still to that plant, so it goes through a mile of pipe from the new wells to our plant where it's filtered. We treat our water is to remove iron and manganese. We use green sand filters and permanganate. And the water through the typical process. It's pumped from our wells, circulates back to keep it from freezing. But that kind of gives you some context of the situation where we have now. Those new wells had the capacity for potential expansion. I think that was for the individuals who designed the wells have future capacity for them, maybe anticipating that there could potentially be a solution like this, but however it worked out, we have wells that have adequate capacity to serve this large area. If we look at the map, you can see there's a lot of different colored squares on that particular map. And I'll show you again down here, the blue lines here. This is pretty much our existing water system. About 600 water customers, probably about 500 water and sewer customers, because we don't have sewer all over the city. that goes around here, and this is truly the jurisdiction of the city. So what the system was going to do is going to connect to ours, and at the time of the settlement, those are the individuals who are eligible to be connected to the water system. So all the different colored squares you see within there, those are properties that were identified during the settlement agreement. Properties, excuse me.
Bill, would you mind remind us where the refinery is and where the plume is?
Here, off the map, it's at the bottom. You can see how the plume starts here, and then all rivers flowing this way.
Yeah.
And the plume basically parallels it. There's pretty much an underground river that's following the Tannenwald River.
And it goes all north all the way up into the blue?
And what now is it spreads out, it gets further diluted. So the high concentrations, obviously where the starts where the source is, and progressively over time it dissipates. But this is the boundary of detection. That line on there now. That's the most current boundary of detection. If you go online, and there's a website you can link to this State of Alaska DEC, and there'll be maps and show you all the wells.
Yes, out of curiosity, on the Flint Hills, where is Petrostar refinery? Is
A
that
little further south. Flint Hills is about here, and Petrostar is right next to it. And TA is right over next to it. So this is kind of the industrial area within the city.
so that plume comes from Petrostar?
No, the source was what was only the Williams Petroleum, and then eventually the Flint Hills site.
It has nothing to do with Petrostar.
Nothing to do with Petrostar. It involved related to the chemicals that were used in the production of the products at that particular refinery. And Petrostar does not produce the products. It used sulfurylene.
Gasoline, Petrostar doesn't make
Gasoline, yeah.
And what's the detection limit mathematically?
So right now they're using it. The particular test is in parts per billion.
Right.
So it's extremely low. But if you hear about some other contamination issues being talked about now in Moose Creek that's over here by Eielson, they're talking in parts per trillion. So airports, the fire training site, they're sampling things in parts per trillion. 1,000 times more sensitive test. Just some insight, the city of Pole does or did receive wastewater when it was an active refinery from Flint Hills, and sulfurylene was a compound that was permitted to be discharged to us. And EPA set our detection limits at parts per million, 1,000 times less sensitive than the current tests are in place. So it's you're bringing I forget it's like a few drops per an Olympic swimming pool. One drop. It's parts per billion. It's very minute. The issue with the sulfurylene, it's very high to when it's water, it will disperse in it. It's not like, say, a petroleum product like heating fuel that will flow on top. It goes right with the water, so it gets carried by the water very easily in the aquifer.
But you're saying it's not a DNAPL. It doesn't settle. It moves with it.
It's with the water for everything I understand about it.
Are they continuing to test?
Yeah, they will require us to continue to test.
And what are they finding increased or decreased or the same?
Decreased because they eliminated the sources of new sulfurylene. So over time, they expect it's like the plume is being fed by a fresh supply, basically. It's a new source for it, so potentially over time it should dissipate. And if you get to the system, this is the plume line, but there's properties outside of that because that's a buffer zone with potential projected expand that over time. Up to about the 30-year time up to here to look at right now. So it's not a question issue, having properties that are not in the plume right now, but for the water system expansion.
Bill, is there a approximate start time when sulfurylene was first used, so there'd be the first possibility of input?
I don't remember. It's in the 80s. Is
85.
Yeah. Jeff was more.
I wasn't there, but it was 85 when Cruise 2 was built. That added gasoline.
Okay.
Came online in 85.
Okay.
So that those things that's in the court case now. And keeping was not the same. Standards were not the same as how things were managed. The times become more rigorous over time with more regulation.
And there still isn't an established, virtually established national standard.
No, it's being researched right now. It's like there are thousands upon thousands of chemicals, and this particular condition led to it being analysis. And I understand the data is actually being crunched now. They expect 1 or 2 years still before they get more rigorous data to make a recommendation to set a standard.
And weird, will that be reviewed by NIOSH, or is NIOSH going to establish it and the feds review it?
That I don't want to say.
Okay.
I'm not well enough informed on.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
Because
It's NIOSH. Institute of Occupational Safety and Health.
Yeah. And also the state, EPA can set a standard, the state can set, they could not set a lower, they could not set a less restrictive. They can set a more restrictive than the feds may set. But there is no standard yet set for sulfolate. So then with the project, at the time of the settlement, that was February in 2017, they identified all these potential properties that would be eligible to connect to water within its only be a water system. And the system is a different standard that the city of North Pole traditionally has. And maybe we'd call it Cadillac standard or maybe an old standard, but our standard was ductile iron pipe, which was the standard we had for water systems. In this project, looking at new technologies, it's become a much more accepted standard. The majority of this, there's 34 miles of pipe, 34 miles of pipe going in, and the vast majority of that pipe is going to be HDPE, plastic pipe will go in there.
Is that welded like that?
Majority of it will be welded. There'll be some I think at points may have less engineers who knows those details.
Although we've used, except for some fittings will be flanched or types.
The practical difference, though.
Well, one of the values that I see with the HDPE pipe with the fusing is, since I'm with the city of North Pole, where we had leaks on mains, the primary areas, ground movement, pulling pipes apart at joints. When it's basically one huge fused system of pipes, we see that as less of an opportunity for there to be those kind of leaks within the system. Not only will it be brand new, but when it's my understanding is, and Wes can speak to that, is the joint is often stronger than the pipe itself.
True, and we've been testing that lately. We already started fusing, and that's one of the tests we do weekly, where we have coupon and we pull it apart, and it's got to pull apart in the pipe, not on the joint, and it does. So I'm convinced.
So we won't be able to have fire hydrants.
Well, now that'll get into that part of the project. Limits, our requirement was, because we were looking, the city of North Pole was looking to provide its residents with the same standard as anyone else who lives within the city of North Pole. So the system within the city limits of the city of North Pole will have capacity for fire protection. If you drive North Pole, I don't know exactly what the separation is. Every several hundred feet, you'll see a fire hydrant throughout the entire city. Because this particular settlement, the purpose was to provide water. It's not fire protection. It was to provide drinking water. Now, there will be fire hydrants dispersed throughout the area. They're needed for maintenance issues, basically to air out different things. So there will be probably every 1,000 feet, is it, or a mile?
I think it's a
mile. So there's not going to be a lot, but there will be fire hydrants dispersed throughout there. It can be used, or will be able to be used, instead of having to come, say, to the city of North Pole to come to a fire hydrant when there is a fire for a pumper truck. They will be able to load at a fire hydrant within this area, get filled up with water, but intended to provide fire protection where they'll be able to hook up hoses and have it close to someone's house. Because the purpose of this project, and it's understood by the parties, outside of the city limits, it's to provide water. The city of Pole wanted to make its residents whole. The requirement was it must be able to provide the fire protection as well. So it was worked out. And what, the key thing that does that, particularly for the city of North Pole, is the city has largely, we call it a fire loop. And it's this large 12-inch ductile iron pipe that around most of the city, and it provides water to our pump houses that supply other circulation loops within it. There's no really water up here. So what we wanted to have was the continuation of that loop, so this property could be developed in the future, but to be developed in the future would have to have a comparable size water main of a 12-inch comparable ductile iron pipe that would go around the city as well. What's going on, because with ductile iron pipe can be thinner than HDPE. So to have the equivalent inside the diameter, the pipe DP is going around here is 16-inch diameter pipe. So that's its own issues with being a much larger pipe. It will provide the water flow we need and the capacities that the city needs for its purposes. But larger pipe, and a little discussion was starting a little earlier here, is when is construction going to begin? March 5th. Because it's going to be on that northern border I was tracing out there is this wetlands area. And to get the heavy construction vehicles out there, it's different permitting issues. If they went out there in, say, summer, you have to, have special matting, possibly even build a road and get higher level of permitting. If they can get in there now while the ground's frozen, they can swap off that top layer, put the pipe in, and put it back and have less of a permitting issue. So it's an economic issue, but also an ease of construction issue. One of the challenges with a big 16-inch pipe with 3 inches of insulation is it needs to float. So it's just getting in there when the water table is lower, because it's going to have down there. Our buried depth requirement is 5 feet, but below that you also have to have a bedding of material. So then we're going to have to dig down. That's the top of pipe is 5 feet. Then you get 16 inches below that. Then you get, a foot of gravel going down. It's going probably getting to 8 feet deep, which is the potential of getting into the water table. So only they wanting to get in there while the ground's frozen. They want to get in there while the water table is as low as possible. So this pipe's not floating on the ground and gives them extra trouble. It's also more difficult to work with. So that's why this project will begin on that particular phase of the project starting March 5th.
And what's the typical water table in there?
I'll leave that to the engineer on that one.
I don't know if we can say typical. It varies a lot throughout the area and time of year, but we're anticipating hitting water at 6-7 feet, closer down towards the city.
Sure. And since this is a wetland area, and you're putting water out there, are you anticipating building area, residential housing, or what type of, what do you anticipate you would serve out there?
The developer, we would provide, there's access to water now.
Mm-hmm.
Really would fall to the developer. It's more difficult to build in a wetland, but you can. It's not, we don't need particular preference. We would like to see it develop. And I've been there, there has been pressure. Can you get us water? Can you get water out there? And those things that the way the city can afford to do something like that. It's a huge project. In fact, vast majority of the city's infrastructure projects have been built with assistance from either public grants or public loans. So it's a sized loan rate. The D has loan rates of like 1.5% over 20 years, a really good rate, but you're borrowing, you have to pay it back. And municipal matching grants, when they were available before this budget situation was occurred, were a match of us. It was a 30% match. So the city would have to spend 30 cents on every dollar or be paying a loan back over time for the vast majority of the infrastructure that's gone in there. To actually put in a multi-million-dollar project on the city's nickel was something that was going to happen. And it's prohibitively expensive also for individual developers to try to build that as well. So bad situation has turned into an opportunity in the city of North Pole in this particular area. So it could be used, could it be rental housing? It could be. There are people talking about that. We get questions about that. But I oversee the building department until someone submits me a building permit application. It doesn't exist to me. And people have heard that, Fred Myers is going to be out there. Well, I've been there, I've been hearing this rumors about it, but Fred's never applied for a building permit out there. So until that happens, there's no Fred Myers coming to the city of North Pole.
Just because you knew Buzz.
A lot of this property was
Buzz's. So, and he had an idea where he could, get the growth of his own property, use that in a residential setting, but then use a large part for commercial. So he's hoping, but without the water, like Bill said, it would never happen.
fringes of it. There is development occurring here. The board has been working with developers here to get properties here zoned for commercial development. So there are people familiar with Zimmerman's or with the Universal Welding, other businesses along here. So they did not have previously access to water. Now there is going to be water along this corridor with the Richardson that can now promote development. And it's not far actually from wastewater. There's a lift station here and lift stations over here. So this particular area, it can be primed for development at not excessively expensive as it may have been in the past, just because this project is now available. But then it doesn't stop for development as well. I also have people talking about it. People do come in and ask me questions about the permits in the city of North Pole. Is water available? Because they're interested for multi-family units wanting water. Well, we can't offer sewer, but now there is the potential to be able to offer water. In that particular area, there were development issues, pump houses. You know, it's just the main. There's no bringing the water into that property. It's just around the border. So like any project where the developer would come in, they would still have to invest money in bringing water to their individual properties.
So, Sherwood Forest, you know, they use the HDPE there, and they do have some fire hydrants on the north side of it, but on the lower side, which was the latter development, it's been there for, I don't know, 4 years. And I think that was 6 inch.
Well, that pipe I mentioned is just part of the system. The vast majority is going to be, in actual residential areas, is going to be 6 and 8 inches.
So what's your diameter running? Right now it's 6 inch to 16 inch.
Will be 12 inch to a 16 inch. For this large loop that goes around the existing city, we have a 12 inch ductile iron. And it will have the same capacity with that 16 inch HDPE that's going in the northern undeveloped part of the city. So we'll have to have a particular, I guess, a special jar to connect those two pipes and then connect it back to our system.
Right, so 6 inch in the residential area, Maine is typically at 12, with the exception of that one area. It'll just be
Inch as well in areas.
8 inches are most common HDPE size. 6 inches in a few localized areas, but most 8 inch.
And where are you getting your pipe, and is it insulated?
But because of the scale for putting out the request for proposals, any time it would take to order pipe for the project, large volumes, the city pre-purchased the pipe for that area I've just been discussing, where the 16 inch is going in. So the pre-bought 15,000 feet of pre-insulated 16 inch HDPE pipe. So it was on, so the contractor could start work in the winter. But they're on the process of ordering their pipe for the rest of the project, and that's, I'm not sure who they're getting it from.
I believe it's coming to Ferguson, and it is created and has a HDPE jacket on it as well.
And the 50-foot lengths?
50 foot, yeah.
Interesting. It's a 2-year project.
It's a 2-year project. Well, I mentioned that typically the city of North Pole goes ask for bids or invitation to bids, where low-cost bidder is the one awarded to. And that there's 3 parties to the lawsuit, so this is really a team effort now. So there's representatives from Flint Hills, the state, and the city of North Pole. And the idea that was, we want the best contractor, not the cheapest contractor. So we put out a request for proposals Cost was a very important issue, but other issues were important as well. Safety record, experience in this kind of environment, experience working with utilities. So we weren't tied into just selecting the deepest contractor. So we did put a request for proposals that was out in October through December, and then the team from Flint Hills, the city, and the state reviewed those proposals and then selected exclusive paving for it. It's interesting that the three competitive ones, their prices were very comparable. It was pretty close for exclusive HC and Davis Construction. So they were all in that area. There was one high and there was one kind of like the Olympics, and the high and low went out. But exclusive, basically had the best related to price and experience and those kind of things, and they're the ones that awarded the project, or awarded this particular project. And part of what I was getting to is the proposal process was, I think, getting points for being innovative or creative in how you wanted to do it. We realized it would take 2 years, but we weren't averse if someone could prove us they could do it in a year. We were really cynical, and they would have really had to prove it. And not a single contractor proposed to try to do it in a single year. So it was a 2-year project.
Well, supply pipe alone.
It's the plans to buy 100% of its pipe.
Well, I know, but just the supply, do it in 1 year.
Yeah.
Supply, that would have been.
Yeah.
And I understand the gem company.
Is the sub for the vertical construction.
And so in that, then how many, are they lift station or operation stations that they're going to be doing?
Like I said, it was the most important slide. There's slides that are of any significance.
Oh.
And now that you brought the question, it was just an opportunity in case it came up. This is a water treatment plant looking from above. It's a 2-story building, and here, this is the footprint, and this is the existing second story. But below here, on the footprint, about this section right here, there's a whole bunch of pumps. Here, there are 2 basically big swimming pools, or clear wells, with about 100,000 gallons of treated water here underneath this building. And we have 3 existing filters to filter our water. As I mentioned, there are green sand and anthracite filters, and we treat it with potassium permanganate to remove iron and manganese. That's all we do. No fluorination, no chlorination for it, because we're using groundwater. We don't have to. But increased need this project, the water, we're going to need 3 additional filters. So the project is going to bump this part, put this section on it, and put 3 new filters for the project in there, for the project. And now the other part of it is some other upgrades will have to occur with that piping and some pumping with it, but that's a pretty significant increase of our capacity to produce water.
So in questioning your filter, you are currently on the 3 on the lower side.
Yes.
You're currently serving 600.
About 100.
And you're going to, you got to be grouping.
Essentially, 700 new customers. Those are the number of properties that were identified at the settlement time. So there will be some excess capacity,
Yeah.
but approximately be able to handle 700 new customers.
So Carl, what you're addressing is that the unforeseen development that happened.
And not only that, but are those 3 new filters larger than this?
No, they're going to be comparable filters. Other slums in. I'll go back real quick. Pipe will, as I mentioned, this big pipe, this 16-inch, will go to a brand new pump house here. And that pump house, will pump the water around different areas. But this is the house where this is the pump house where all the pumps will be, and there's a brand new tank. Right now we have big buried swimming pools or clear wells.
This is the new one.
This is the new one.
Okay.
And the project needed approximately, the calculation engineer was less than 500,000 gallons of water, but the way the tanks were coming in, their plan was to put in $500,000 gallon tank for water storage. So previous to that, the city had an old water treatment plant that had a small storage reservoir in it, but it had issues that high maintenance costs were gonna be needed for it. So basically mothballed that several years ago, but that cut us down by about 150,000 gallons of water. So we're kind of on edge. And if you remember, it was the fire at the welding shop. Our utility were in communication on that, because when you fight fire, they were just watching the welds going down, down, down. The last thing we want to see is, because we have emergency fire pumps. So if there's a critical emergency, these pumps will go on, but they'll pump in untreated water into the system. So our police were talking as our utility guys watching the water go down and down and down, and then they finally settled it. So we're really kind of close if an emergency situation, because the last thing we want to do is have untreated water go in there, because then we have a oil advisory have to go in place. We have to do multiple samplings to make sure it's not contaminated. It can be a whole bunch to deal with that. So when this issue came up, I approached the team and said, could we add additional capacity to this? So the city of North Pole, on its dime, is buying $250,000 or 250,000 gallons worth of extra capacity. So the tank now be 3/4 or quarters of a million gallons of water. We're buying that 250,000 gallons of extra water to help us compensate for that capacity that we cut out several years ago. So it's an effective way for us to get a lot of water. Even though this particular pump house, and that just gives you an idea of the complexity we'll deal with of all the pumps that are in there. And as a public utility, you have to have backup pumps and the circulation pumps, but what's in the pump house. Getting that expanded capacity helps us recapture some of that excess that we lost when we decommissioned an old water treatment plant was from the 1970s. And we were going to pour a lot of money into repairing it, recoating it. We just thought it was too expensive. Well, when it's starting to crack and you're worried about that.
Those aren't that's not the 700 million.
No, this is inside the new house.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of give you an idea, because there'll be different pumps, skids for each of the circulation areas. So I'll go to the map, broken out. There's different zones within the project, and then the 2-year construction cycle is starting in beginning of March. There's a zone one down here, probably most people are familiar as 12 Mile Village is here, and then zone 2 is mostly the area that's within the city limits. And PC was the engineer on this. We have a pump house that provides circulating water for what we call Highway Park and the Ford subdivision. But the house was made large enough that in the future, because there was always the concept, what if the city had to expand? So people were looking forward what to do in potential expansion here. So the project will be able just to upsize pumps and provide the pumping capacity to provide the water to this zone 1. In zone 2, this pump, as was asking about general construction, doing the construction, this pump house and the work here at the water treatment plant will be completed this year. Because pump house and the filtering capacity has to be functional so that this can come online and this can come online. So there'll be vertical construction will occur in 2018. But this house will help provide circulation for here, but it will also provide circulation for zone 4 and circulation for zone 3. But with that expanded water capacity, our 2 reservoirs. So if there is, we can balance out our flows, the kind of situation. If we had another big fire like we had at the welding shop, we would have had, 750,000 gallons of additional water. We wouldn't have been in that situation where we're looking, I'm going to have to switch on the fire pumps to deal with this. We wouldn't have been in that same situation. The way we're looking at the project is we've got the approval to construct on last Friday. So the whole process, if you look at the engineering design packet and what has lived that for months, it's about at least that thick, probably 5 inches thick, because there's vertical construction, so all the piping, all the permitting, all the different things are part of it. So it was an involved process to get that approval to construct, and it was just issued on Friday. And the actual physical construction will start on March 5th. but that pipe going in the ground. So we don't expect that we'll get the approval or temporary authorization to operate probably until fall of 2018. Very unlikely that anyone will be able to connect to the system at that time. It's just because it's so simply late in the season, the ground's starting to freeze up. Right now, we don't like people digging on our water mains when it's getting cold just because of frost issues. So we think that anyone will actually, maybe a few races, possibly in Zone 1 or 2, will connect until 2019. And then the construction in the Zones 3 and 4 that will actually putting the pipe in the ground in 2019, probably in that area will be able to connect to their structures until 2020. So it'll be a process, you know, there's different phases. And there's different incentives to get people to hook up. Within the city of North Pole, by code, if you're within 200 feet of the water main, you have to connect. We have no authority outside the city, so no one's going to be forced outside the city limits to connect. It will be their option. No Parliament agreement is offering an incentive payment for people to try to get them on the system. It's everyone's interest, the state, Flint Hills, to get people to putting in a water system to help deal with groundwater contamination. If no one connects, it's like what's the purpose? We kind of like a lot of wasted money. So all customers that are in one of the colored squares right now will be, excuse me, for a $2,000 credit. So the water bill, if they start an account with the city of North Pole, $2,000 on that, and the city will bill against that until it expires. The project will also pay their tuition fee of $75. Everyone who starts a new account has to pay $75 with a deposit, because we had issue with people when they don't pay their bill. So we have a relatively steep deposit to deal with that, and a lot of times that still won't cover some of the big bills. So, but the project will pay the deposit fee. Through 2022, we have some other additional charges that are part of our bill. There's a total charge that we collect, a small charge for capital construction costs. It helps us pay those matching fees for grants or our loan payments. That fee will be waived until 2022. As everyone has in their electric meter, you have a meter charge. We have a comparable thing called a base charge, and that will be waived until 2022. So people in the area will be able to tap into incentives to connect. Will everyone connect? I would really like to see everyone connect. Conservative estimate, Joe Mo's here, they have estimates with gas lines, how many people will connect. If 50% connect by 2022, 2025, I see that as positive. Overall, 5% I think would be a good goal. I'd like to see all 700 connect, especially because there's an incentive. Because not only getting this $2,000 credit, for those people with those colored properties on there, the project will pay the connection cost as well, not a charge to them.
For as long as forever, or just?
It's right now that hasn't been fully determined, but there had no talk that there's a limit on that particular thing. And because one of the things we're working with, the project that was bid out there was just to put the mains in the ground. And it was, should we also have part of the project to bid on the actual customer connections, the service connections? And it was thought, we're just not ready for that right now. But we ask exclusive paving to give us a rough estimate, because we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And they're still looking at some original standards of copper pipe and such. But for typical 200-foot connection using copper, I'll get into the next thing, they were looking in the range of $30,000 per connection. And that's another benefit that someone would get for free connecting. The project would pay for them to connect to the system.
It has to be copper, it can't be copper.
No, well, that's the other part. What I want to see is, because the thing working with the utility in North Pole is, I hate to see someone have a frozen water line, because then I can see there's a huge expense someone's going to have to deal with. A lot don't have insurance, and they're looking at a $10,000, a $15,000, $20,000 bill when they get a freeze up or something that freezes on their line. So the thing I want to see is a whole bunch of brand new customers, and then got this freeze up, and it's a potential $20,000 to $40,000 expense. Looking at, and the engineer is preparing a cost estimate for the city of North Pole to develop a standard, pretty much copy what Fairbanks uses. Fairbanks is using an HTPE, possibly could be PEX, we're still looking at that, of a customer service line, because those products can sustain multiple freezing. So we're looking at that as the standard for connections. And if you're not familiar with the Fairbanks standard, well, even with what's here, there's a circulation loop. You can main, it comes to the house, and water flows through all the time to make sure that that pipe doesn't freeze. The city of North Pole, that's all it is. It's a copper line. And if something goes wrong, you can get copper freeze once, you might be lucky, but don't count on it freezing twice. The thing about the Fairbanks standard is they have an HE line that goes in there, and they've got the same kind of loop, but that's small, I think it's about, is it a quarter inch, or maybe it might even be a half inch of a PEX line that goes as loop from the house. There's an open end in the house, goes through the main and back. You'll be put hot water in that if it does freeze to be able to thaw out that line. So the mechanism to thaw out lines, because the last thing I want to have to deal with is brand customers. Many of them have not been on a pump water system, and suddenly their pipes freeze and they're empty.
Bill, what's the deal with DA now? Is this now a combined public utility?
Yeah. Yeah, an interesting thing. Got on the utility, and I'd never worked with a utility before. Our attorney, asking him to get on. I'm going to propose to the council my first year there, raising utility rates. Can we do this? The RC oversee us? And he says, no, you don't do it. You're regulated. But then a lawsuit came up, and then the question came up, do you authorization from the RCA for your service area? What we found is the city of North Pole got a approval to an RCA service area for that. 1970, I think it was. That's all we had. The city never went to that. They went through all sorts of this expansion, and no authorization. They had no certificate to do that. So it was like, whoa, we better do that, because the key thing for this settlement was, can the city of North Pole even serve this? Do we even have the authority? And the city, it was in our code. Our current mayor, until particularly our attorney, thought, inside the city you had to annex. That was our company line. It was in our code. You had to have, if you wanted city water, if it's right on our boundary here, you have your property annexed to the city. Searched and found out, no, you can't offer water service outside the city. You just have to get the certificate. So RCA, and they weren't really pissed off at us. They basically said, just correct the issue. So we put together the certificate cover our footprint of the city for our water area, plus this. So we got a certificate back in, I think it was April, was awarded to us. So we got a certificate area to serve water. But we had the same certificate for our wastewater that we're now in the process of applying for, just to cover the footprint of our city. But yeah, I have a certificate of need to serve water outside, because that was critical to the project, that here we're potentially investing up to $100 million, and the city can't even provide water to it, so that was key.
So if you're serving outside of the city, can you still be deregulated?
Yes. The discussion we had on as well, the way he's treating it is there's public oversight of rates, because there's a city council. So there is a local mechanism for people to rates or have feed their input to the rate. So that was satisfied them.
Back, you mentioned two things in regard to connections. There was a incentive of $2,000.
Oh, the credit.
Okay, and then you said the cost of $30,000 to hook up.
Approximately.
And then you said that it would be paid for.
It would be done at their expense. We worked out the exact details of how it could be. Two options are being discussed right now. One, we could say, okay, customer owner A, go out and guesstimate, come to that estimate, hire someone and do all the stuff, and we'll pay the bill. Do the whole house, it needs to be corrected. being discussed, the one that I lean toward, is that we may identify 1 to 3 contractors that are pre-qualified, then do an estimate and put it in and do all the work for the customer.
And then it's paid for through the
Settlement agreement.
settlement agreement.
So if you have 7 customers, all the new customers, that's $21 million.
That's expectation. That's in the range of what is being estimated right now. And the project, the exclusive to put in 34 miles of pipe is $52 million. The customer service lines look to be about half that. Is what the expectation, yes. Well, it's another huge project yet to come.
So besides freeze up, is the cost for installing HDPE services any less?
Yes, covers much less per foot.
So it would certainly be 30.
But
30,000.
there is a difference as well. In the city, pit orifices, they're in the main, and there's these 2 pits that go into main, and they have a cup in one end and a cup on another, and circulate the water through enough of a volume for up to 100 feet. It can, by the sea pumping, it can circulate through the house. Now, the recommendation is you have a circulation pump just in case, and beyond 100 feet, you better have one. But it does that within the city limits. This particular system will not have that. We will circulate the water to keep it fresh, but not sufficient to actually circulate through the customer service line. The vast majority are going to probably be 200 feet or longer. So you have to be able to do it anyway. So every property in this particular expansion will have to also have a circulation pump. That's another key thing that one system covers lines that will not freeze. People that go, I want to save some energy, and I'll go as long as I can into the fall of not turning it on. Or reason it burns out or whatever, or they want to save some money, and they off, and they prefer to turn it back on in the fall. The system that won't be a catastrophic failure, it's a benefit to the customers as well. And we have adopted a brand new meter technology. The technology we have is electronic metering. So a guy drives around town with a computer signal, and we can read the meters, but we do that once a month. We have literally had people, like the day after we've read the meter, they've had a break. And it's months later we know. And you can have someone that can have a wall of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 because it's just like a train, and it just goes around, and they've not even aware of it. So with meter technology, it has 2 critical functions that I see are important. Is it will be cellular based. So sold on us, our utility clerk sitting in the office with monitor each morning will be able to look at the system and get on all of them to know. We'll be able to know almost in real time if there's a break. Now, we won't know until we've read the meters, and then we go through the report, and it might have an anomaly that will then call someone and say, your water bill is suddenly, times higher than normal. You better check. We will be able to do it every day because there's a number of people with snowbirds. They go away. What happens if the power goes out? The circulation pump goes off, power back on. Sometimes those pumps are freeze up. They don't restart. You have these catastrophic failures. So we're seeing that as a real opportunity. The other thing is, as I mentioned, there's the circulation loop process for water. Water always flow. I come from lower 48. Someone doesn't pay their bill, comes out, turns you off, you quickly pay your bill. Right now, we can have people that just battle with us for months and months, years, not paying their bill. We have no mechanism, short of getting a backhoe out there, cutting their pipes off at the main, the thing we absolutely don't want to do. This new meter technology, guy sitting out on the curb with a little thing like this, and 2 functions. Constricted flow, which will just go and give them a little bit of water, or shut water off. We want to dig them up. Another thing that I don't want, it's a challenge dealing with 600 customers where there's a problem where, a small minority, but a difficult minority, don't pay their bills. You deal that, and then have new ones that don't pay their bill. People who are already, and Jeff's familiar with it, are already angry that, why I have to do this, why do I have to pay for water? It was always free before. Don't want to pay their bill. How do you do that? I don't water anymore. So we deal with that and we can turn it back on.
Is that becoming pretty standard metering over
It's
48?
brand new. The company that we have they only became, within the last year, they're actually selling it. They were testing it and doing all that, doing all the field tests. Now it's commercially available, yeah.
So I discussed this with Jomo, I don't know if he's discussed it with you, but is there an opportunity for the utility to go aside,
No. There's regulatory issues. You can't be doing that. Our contractor is already got a planned construction. It's happening, and there's issues of where you're going to put pipe and all those things. You know.
so IG will come back and
Come in there. We got first dibs.
tear it off with you?
So he's going to have to come in and do the run. But we have gotten easements and other things that we had to give. The vast West had to do the majority of the work with easements. The project really focused on using right-of-ways and existing easements, and there's about, 50 easements we had to get optimal. Everyone somehow touched or in some way you can get water to them. So there's about 54. We're probably at about 40 that have been obtained, and probably another half a dozen of those are in negotiation, and then there's probably a handful that are just in difficult negotiation. So a handful that just don't have yet. You know, there's
difficult as in getting chased with a plow truck or shot at.
yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. So everything's trying to use what's already there and available. The same thing IG would always try to do itself as well. The last thing we want to have to do is try to get those easements.
Now, to Carl's question about tearing it up again, we put in our system, the GU can parallel that, right? So it won't be
Whatever regulatory distances they have to have, because right now when they came in the city of North Pole, they were in the area of our water mains throughout the city and dealt with that. So I mean that's common enough, but actually to try to do it in the same trench and all that and bury depths and
Well, I didn't mean in the same, but at the same time, to reduce the labor and figure out, as you said, the parameters and the distance, and just go well and lay it down while the earth is uncovered. Do it all at one time.
It kind of makes logical sense, but then there's practical, and then there's regulatory, all those other issues that complicate it, that our project that's by the different parties are not going to see anything that's going to add to the cost. And everything is, we do a good quality product, but anything that's additional, and I fully accept and understand. That's why the city of Knowles is paying for that extra reservoir capacity, because there's no way you should have any right to ask for something beyond that satisfies the needs of the settlement. So yeah, the settlement would not put extra money in that would delay the project or require additional or other work. If someone wanted to do that, they would have to put extra money in, and there's money for the city for its regular projects get municipal matching grants anymore.
It's a little bit outside of the scope of this project, so a lot, really, but Moose Creek, that pollution with fire retardant, discussion is ongoing, and I know that the Air Force has not made a decision how to proceed yet, but one of the solutions they talk about is potentially hooking into the North Pole water system.
No preferred option for that, and suppose they're going to release some announcement within the next couple of months. I looked at that they would be the preferred option. North Pole would provide the water. You see North Pole's attitude on that is exactly the same on the sewer system expansion. Yeah, it's great, but anything that requires an additional cost will not be shouldered by the utility ratepayers of the city of North Pole or new expansion. If we're the option, you're going to have to do just like the settlement is done. If you need filters, you need more pumping capacity, you have to pay for it. We'll gladly help you and participate, but you can't expect our ratepayers, our taxpayers to fund it. But yes, are supposedly the preferred option for that.
And this is only what you read, what I read, but the people of Moose Creek, have kind of that attitude that you expressed that, hey, it was free before and now you're gonna have to pay for it. We want any solution that's going to lead us to paying for water. You had the same issue in North Pole when that discussion was going on. Let's have faded other than the plow truck and the shotgun, I guess. Where does that all stand? Kind of relations.
That's a critical part of the project. We just had an open house on Saturday. We had an open house the year before to kind of let people know what's going on, inform them, kind of show them maps where pipe's going to be, explains like the intent is. There's a party, it's hard to say specifically, maybe 5 to 10 that are really adamantly, negative. Others are it's going to be an extra cost, but wow, I don't have to get salt anymore. I don't have to worry about the trace failing, so there's a lot on that. And Mr. Essing knows from 12 Mile Village, he's probably seen samples of that water. If you look at it, it's brown in a lot of people because they have this little well that's tapped into their neighbor's septic system. A lot of people there are like, thank you. Yeah. This is great. But there's other people, again, I don't want to have to pay for this. It's free. It's truly not free of all the other costs they have.
And that's actually my question. Just mentioned septic.
Correct.
So how is that going to work?
They want
still be on septic.
Just on septic, because everyone there, well, technically, or on lots is adequate for a DEC well and septic, but all these properties have that kind of situation, or they might have had delivered water or something, other option, but they have well and septic already. So now just providing them with water. What will occur, and Flint Hills did this when they put in, earlier in the process, the Ford subdivision, just north of the refinery, near the North Pole High School, put a water main there because it was right in the plume, was quickly available. They installed water mains, did the same thing, connected people to the system, but allowed them to maintain their well so long as we have it asked, do you want a separate tap for that? So you could, for example, a hose bib, where you connect it to your well. You could either wash your car, you could use it for water, but it must be absolutely separate from the public water system. And that's the same thing we would allow here as well. So it's like, yeah, you want to use water to wash your car? That makes sense. You don't have to pay for it. Water lawn, fill a swimming pool, whatever. You can fill it with groundwater, but if you want to cook with it, that them, they just have to be absolutely no cross connection. Undermine the whole purpose of
enter the public system.
Enter the public system because that would undermine the whole purpose.
Jeff?
Is a secondary impact, would you expect septic systems to have a short lifespan?
No, that'd be hard to tell. I would think that now that they're seeing a bill, that they're more conservative. The city of North Pole did not have meters, and you remember the council when they went to meters there. I just went there. They didn't. They had an unmetered system, but water was just, people were just using. It was a flat rate. When they put it in, I think their water production level dropped by at least 25%. When people actually saw a bill, and it was like, wow, maybe I can make that lower, is use less. So there's potential that it probably would be less. That I have a little bit of concern about is the in the house and the watering for the, and Flip found that when they put the systems in, when they came in the houses was, they put in water filtration systems. Well, they had to connect to the electrical system, had to connect to the well system, what their plumbing like. It's like, there's some issues that I worry about. How adequate is their system when it's suddenly tied into the city water that's going to be at a regular pressure and all those kind of issues. It's just that kind of concern. But it's going to depend. We'll just have to see how that goes.
What's your plan employment to maintain?
Another part, when Flint Hills, was a control of probably 25% of our sewer revenue when the line was fully operational. When we stopped operation in 2014, we were just also completing an information and flow project. That our waste flowed by a 50% in basic 1 year. So not only do we have less wastewater coming in because we didn't have groundwater pouring in through cracks and stuff, that's Flint Hills flow of about 25%. We had a position open up, we just didn't fill. So we had 4 employees, and then we went to 3. We've been there until just about a month or so ago, because part of the agreement was recognition of this project will have additional demands on the city, and there was a part of the settlement to help in that transition. Well, we have to run expanded utility, but they're not there yet. So there's in there to help support until people actually do connect and start paying bills, or we start drawing down from the credit, so that we can start that. So we did hire a 4th person back, so they'd be, because the lesson from the IGU project, there was high demand on our utility staff, locates coming in. Utilities here, we see there's going to be a lot more things because there's people going to need to work in water plants. There's going to be higher demands on our staff overall. We want to have someone adequately trained to do other work while our experienced people can work with the project. When GEM company calls, hey, we need help in the treatment plan of IGU operations, all those kind of things. So we have that in place now. So we have an increased employment for our operations. Right now, the utility pays about 75% for a utility clerk for billing. I suspect as this project goes, that position we can 100% billing. So we'll just, as revenues increase, we'll probably have to increase the first time 100% to handle billing and those kind of issues.
So you're not seeing a lot.
Double the amount.
Yeah.
We don't expect quite that, yeah. But again, just have to play that by ear
Until they connect.
until they connect. Yeah. Here, because doing the billing itself is not too difficult. It's dealing with the delinquent and the unpaid bills that consume a lot of time. So hope we don't see that right in the front side because there's going to be credits. So it's just like does the math and takes it off there, and we'll have the option of shutting people off. So we don't see we'll have that doubling of those connection issues that we have now.
As well as the field.
Yeah.
You're not seeing.
Yeah. The other thing, one of them was negotiated to forgive that capital charge and the base charge, which the city applies for its capital projects. It was negotiated that why would the people who have brand new infrastructure in place have to pay for that? So it was kind of like, okay, well, we can accept not being able to collect that revenue for several years. But then that revenue collect after 2022.
Jeff, your first map, your big map. You said that Mayor Ward had been doing some work on that Richardson Highway corridor to be more accommodating. I think there's
So I have it rezoned commercial.
have a rezone commercial. So what are constraints on commercial development there with respect to water? I mean, can the system handle?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, that was,
like Fred Meyer, or I don't know if there's water intensive commercial.
my concern was with the project, and it's one of those things I fully accept and understand. This project was designed to serve those properties. So for that capacity, with a little excess. But there's a lot of other green squares in there that no one's built on yet. We LCA for a surface area. Say that our service area goes around this property and around that one within our service area, and they can't get service. I'm sure that the system can handle the expansion. It may require increase in pump size, others like that, which is legitimate that over time we might have to do that, but the piping could handle the expansion to that infill area as well. So it's one of the things I wanted clarified right at the outset that, yes, we're going to be limited to size to serve this project with some additional capacity, but if we grow, the city should have to do is not dig up an 8-inch pipe and put in a 10-inch pipe. It's increase the power of a pump.
Okay.
Or maybe increase the size of a reservoir or something like that, so that we can legitimately say to someone a project that's not eligible for the freebie that they can connect in the future.
When you do wells, I recall 5 acres where you got 10 more wells again.
We actually, the way the wells were built, we could upsize the pumps. That's what we projected. If Moose Creek were to become online, we may have to increase the size of the pumps, but the capacity of the aquifer and the size of the well casings were large enough. We just have to increase the pump capacity. Things that we did with this as well is we had water rights and the project And because the service area changed with DNR, we had to change our water rights just to reflect the new service area. But simultaneously, we also asked for more water. So it would reflect, and that's the city's expense. Again, the project didn't pay for it. It was $100 really just to get that, so it was not that big a deal. But we have water rights. We have first dibs on the water for that other capacity in the future. I thought that was kind of one of those wise decisions, just like the reservoir was a decision that for the future to have that.
Well, that was very interesting and
Comprehensive.
And I know a painful project getting here, but it sounds exciting for the future.
It's like I've said to other people, it is the biggest public project to ever hit North Pole. Bigger project, the refineries went in, they were more expensive, but a public project, this is the biggest thing to hit North Pole. I put my, because Wes doesn't need people calling. But if you have any questions, you can contact me. You get a lot of this information. Now, this would take you directly. That's why I said I put the address. You're not going to type that one in. But if you go here, during the North Pole one, you go to the pull-down menu, projects around town, that will take you right to the project additional. You can get those maps. There's the big map, and then actually zone-by-zone map. You can look at individual properties. If you know someone and they say I'm at such Goldenrod Road, where's the water main going to be? You can go on that. Also on there, there's the link to the DEC site. You're asking about wells where the plume is. Where you can hit the DEC web link, you can get to all the reports, and you can see where all the test wells are, the hundreds of that are around the area, and the well data on that, and the laboratory results on that. So if you really want to dive into it, you can get to it. Can get you to all the stuff you need.
How often are those tested?
I think it's annually. There might be certain, some of them are annually. There's different schedules on the wells that are required.
One great example of, Mulder with the Attorney General's office, the City of North Pole and their attorney, Flint Hills with Ryan Stiles and the others in the ADEC coming together to come up with solutions, which is a really positive one. And, I couldn't be proud of Flint Hills and their participation. I still am retained with them.
There's another party that's not as cooperative.
I think Williams, and there is claims that the courts come against with Williams, and that will be pro rata share between the state, who's putting up 20% of the project money, and the 80%.
Yeah.
So, the court very slowly. It's just we thought that
June 11th is the first evidentiary
hearing. And I hear Williams says they have 19 witnesses or something. So this is going to go on. But what they're doing is just figuring out, well, we'll dribble out a few $1 million a year, and we can earn more than that. And if we get hit with a $50 million thing later, I don't know what they're thinking. Yeah. We have a strong case.
But it's been a partnership. That's true.
Very great example of people working together to spend money on something positive rather than, no offense to any attorneys.
Well,
It's been a long time, but
to all involved in this, thanks all of you for making our community a better place, and this will definitely do it. So, yeah.
Because of the issues you brought up with the Eielson expansion, North Pole does help the potential for multi-family housing. There's more for that. Because what I see, people coming to the city of North Pole, military families, are kind of expecting, look at the calls, when does the trash collection come? Or my water's frozen, can you come out and fix it? What's your address? You're outside the city, you're on a well. They just have a certain expectation of public services that when you're further out into the borough, you just don't have. So the city is expanding the services that are available right in the vicinity, outside the city, and in the city as well.
Cool. Okay, Bill. Thanks,
Thank you.
Wes.
Thank you.